Hi, my name is Nariba Shepherd.
And I'm Justin Arnett Graham.
And this is Terms of Service.
New episode.
Yes.
So exciting, as always. And
how are you, though?
how am I?
Yes.
Oh, we're like rolling into it right now.
Uh-huh.
I'm well. I'm not a big resolutions dude. I'm let's focus on some changed behaviors.
Okay.
So I'm like, let's try and make this year better than last. And, that's one foot in front of the other, and I'm happy about it.
Are you going to take more nappy naps?
Whether I want to or not, because I'm getting older and my body's being like, you need to sit your ass down. So whether I listen to it or not, we'll
That's
see.
what I'm saying. Just, I am not a resolution girly because I can't even commit to a single load of laundry. So
Okay, well,
I'm just trying my best.
Well, you got to do it. I'm like, whether you fold it, that's on you, but you got to do it. So.
I have not one, but 2 duffel bags of clean laundry that I have not put away.
Okay, well, we're going to work on that for
That's
the
what
new
I'm
year. I was
saying.
like, we most certainly going to work
Or,
on that.
maybe I just live by myself and I keep everything clean, but my room is like how I have a direct understanding of my mental health. Like, if my
can see
room is
that.
messy, I feel insane. But the rest of the apartment is always clean because I have 2 cats and
Right.
they just find shit everywhere.
Yeah,
and they're like, now it is in the living room.
Yeah, I mean, they're
and I'm
fucking
like,
cats.
yeah, it's okay. I love them.
Yeah,
They're
you're gonna
expensive.
get there. Yeah, well, I mean, they're animals. And
I know.
I think it's funny to look at these animals and be like, if this was a different time, be outside fucking searching for your goddamn food, okay? So it's just like all this attitude, all this bullshit, unnecessary because you had to hunt for this shit.
Listen, I ran out of wet food 2 days ago, and I was like, they have dry food. They'll be fine. And then they were like having an attitude with me. I'm like, listen,
You can go outside
you don't
and figure
pay
it out.
rent.
Exactly. You can go outside
You don't
and figure
pay
it out.
rent.
Exactly. I was just like, let's talk to you about a credit score. Let's talk to you about invoicing. Let's
God.
talk to you about bills. Okay? I was like, because you get none of that. Okay?
None.
And I feel like I could easily go off on a tangent and
Yes.
in
Let's
that
reel her
regard.
again.
Yeah, so again, new episode, 2 fresh guests, which I'm very excited about. And this conversation is one that we have always talked about internally, but this is the first time that we are doing it. And people are like, well, Justin, what does that mean? I'm like, well, what it means is that Terms of Service represents a newer element of hospitality media and the way that we speak the language of the industry as the way that we came up. And our 2 guests are very much active in the industry and have had a lot of power and influence, but it has come before us. And I think it's really important to bridge that generational gap and talk about how we can learn from the things of the past. So therefore we can provide a tangible roadmap for the future.
Oh, yeah.
And on that note, welcome to our guests.
Hi, all.
Yes, please introduce yourselves because I don't want to do it for you because I always feel so awkward introducing other people.
That's real.
So,
Thank you. I'll start.
yes, bring it on in, Art.
My name's Art Mendoza. I've been in the restaurant hospitality business for too long, probably close to 48 years.
Wow.
I've opened over 100 locations throughout the U.S. Been in Chicago here for 26 years now.
Where are you originally from, if I may ask?
California.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Born and raised California,
Whereabouts?
the Santa Clara area.
Okay.
So
I'm
it's
going to act like I know exactly
so
where
it's
that
the
is.
Silicon Valley, South San Francisco area.
The land of Apple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before Apple was Apple, it was all apple and pear orchards.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Never knew that.
Yeah. I used to go out in the creeks and catch frogs and stuff like that way back in the day.
I honestly knew that part before it registered Silicon Valley Apple. I thought of that first before that. And that's to tell you what kind of person I am.
Yes. Continue, Art.
But I've been in the Midwest since 1981.
Okay.
Started out in Minnesota. I was a Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater
Turn up.
franchisee.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking about Chuck E. Cheese last week.
There you go.
Yep, it's still real.
Very
It's still,
timely.
It's it's still there. And if people were to actually research Chuck E. Cheese's, it was started by a gentleman called Nolan Bushnell.
Okay.
Now, if you don't anything about Atari, Nolan Bushnell started Atari.
What the hell?
I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And the original Chuck E. Cheese's was actually called Ricky Rat's. And it was
I did know that. Yeah,
I knew that.
Yeah, it was in San Jose, California, and Ricky Rat used to smoke a cigar and tell dirty jokes.
Okay. All right.
And people loved it. It was crazy and everything
Shout out
else.
to Ricky Rat.
And so at that point, he wanted to sit there and say, "Hey, we got to bring the kids in." So they softened the rat, and that's when it became Chuck E. Cheese's.
And just gave us the creepy rat.
Yeah.
So I've been around since way back then when that started. So I had the franchise rights along with some partners in the 5-state region, Minnesota, Wisconsin, stuff like that. So we built some stores out there and then sold them.
Damn.
So, and then
I would say just on that specifically, Chuck E. Cheese used to scare the hell out of me. Okay, because I don't even know
The
what
animatronic band.
Yes, and because everything that is old is new again. So the newer generation has discovered Chuck E. Cheese and been like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? That was entertainment.
Yes.
Okay. I was just like, it was. They would like play the banjo. I don't know the names of all the
characters.
But because Chuck E. Cheese is the main one, right?
yeah, he's the main character.
Yeah. So he like the mascot, or he would like come out and go around. Shout out to my mom because she loves this story. She's like, yeah, you had a birthday party there and you like came around and you screamed like I had never heard, and you were crying and you hid underneath the table. And I was like, tracks.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like that tracks for me. But wow.
Now, during those days, if you were an adult, it was Chuck E. Cheese was like the perfect birth control, because once you saw all those kids going nuts, it's like, no, I don't want anything of it.
I don't want nothing to do with that. Oh my God. Yeah.
They made it into a horror movie.
Did they really?
They made a horror movie based off of the like idea of Chuck E. Cheese, but all of the animatronic characters come to life at night, and like I guess the plot is like kids sneak in or whatever and they get murdered by the animatronic.
I had no idea. Well, I was just like,
cool.
Yeah, I was like, well, who approved that licensing?
That's right.
But I'm like,
well, they don't. It's not called Chuck E. Cheese. It's like Freddy's Fun House or something like that. You know, they gotta like the alliteration has to be there, but not quite.
That's fair. Yeah.
But
my friend, hello,
Slam
please.
Duncan.
Yes,
let us
I was
know.
just like, we're gonna move it right on over to you because I am not gonna introduce you because I'm trying to get better at that. So please tell the people who you are, and again, welcome to you both to the TOS fam.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so cool to be here. My name is Felipe Ospina.
Yes.
I've been in hospitality for around 25 years. And I also open a few restaurants, not as many as Art, but probably around 24, 25.
Still substantial.
Yes.
Yes. and still very involved with our industry, with hospitality. Always still in touch with Art every single week. Someone that I admire very much and has been a mentor for me. He's a dear friend. Family is how, how I see him, him and his family. So nothing. Excited to be here.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, before we wander too far down this road, I would like to know, if you have this information ready, what is your signs?
I'm a Leo.
110%.
Yep.
That is accurate.
Yep.
I'm a Virgo.
Okay.
The buddy system.
Yes.
Listen,
Yes, very nice.
So Justin and I are both Virgo risings, which like is the energy of having your shit together. You're very put together seeming, the presentation of it. A lot of lists and deadlines and like meeting
Systems.
yes.
Controls.
Yeah, it's controls. Big one.
I
Yes.
very often joke that it is literally the only thing holding me together because I'm a double fire sign. And I think that Virgo rising is literally holding me down on a day-to-day basis. My growth about Leos is astounding. Do you see that?
Yeah,
Look at
I see that. Yeah.
The confidence of Leos for me is just like the ability to get into a conversation with someone and like be actually paying attention the entire time, but being able to like plug yourself and your worth in a conversation without it feeling like showcasey.
Right.
I don't have that.
Right.
It is an admirable trait.
Absolutely.
But it's also a lot to do with being able to bring people together. Like, I feel like that is big Leo energy. Aries and Sagittarius, the other fire signs, were like, we will show up to the party, but we're not necessarily actively trying to bring people together. We are there for it, but you are like, I will organize this. And I'm like, go off. It's not for me.
Yeah. So does that track?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I sit there and you're right. I'm very organized, and certain things just kind of, they don't set me up, but they kind of get me frustrated.
Yeah.
And then you're waiting for people to make sure they follow through, and you'll wait for so long, and then it's like, okay, all right,
Yes.
this is what we have to do.
Yeah, that's
Not afraid to reinforce boundaries when it is time to do it.
right.
Yes.
Yes.
And on my side, that's very accurate. I love just taking initiative and getting people together, and just I always need to be creating and coming up with something new all the time.
So like
You're
being
always
in
on the
mix,
next thing.
Being in the mix,
being in the
coming
mix,
up
yeah.
with something new, a new event, coming up with an idea for a new restaurant, a new challenge. I need to be challenged all the time. I need to, like this year I'm running the Berlin Marathon.
Oh,
and that was
yeah.
something that I'm like, I just signed up for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I usually just take on projects, and really I am not scared of taking on anything. Then I'll figure it out. I will figure this out as I go.
I could never. I am just starting to get out of this phase of my life where I used to only do things that I know that I can be good at. Like, I might not be the best at it now, but I know I could get better. If I know I don't have a chance in hell, I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, take a risk. Sorry, Kelly Clarkson. I can't.
Oh my God.
But like,
Yeah.
you know what some people have to do, and you're doing it.
Yeah. I think.
But also,
Go ahead.
can we just like point out how we met at the opening ceremonies for Jean Banchet?
Oh,
Like,
yes,
this
absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
so random that
Yeah.
like now you're here and you're doing the thing, and I know that's not random. That's how Justin does it, networking.
It's
But for
very
me,
full
that was the
circle.
first time where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm actively in this, and I like this, and you should definitely come and talk with us.
Absolutely. And then set up
'Cause I
that
don't like
discovery call
people.
and all of that. Well,
I don't like people.
you're liking them now.
Yes, that's what I'm in.
Yes.
But that's the way things happen. Like, is just through friends. I think that everything that just happens for me, it's through friends. Is through, hey, let me introduce you to my friend that does this, and this, and this, and then from there, you start building this new relationship. Start to get to know each other, and I want to get to know more about the friend, the new friend. I'm like, why are you connected to my other friend that I've known for 15 years and I don't know you yet? What's going on here?
Yeah.
I want to do some research. So you were
It's
already.
also protective.
It
Yes.
is. You're
Yeah.
endorsed by a friend that I love
Leo.
very much.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
When we first met, he was at Mercadito, and I used to go visit, and I used to just watch. Right, he was the GM, and he has no fear just walking up to anybody and talking. Right now, I'm not like that. Right,
Same.
I've got to get introduced and so forth. But he has no fear, and then before you know it, he's talking to everybody. So for the longest time, I used to tell him he's like the mayor of Chicago. Right? He knows friggin' everybody, and because of that, he'll introduce you to somebody. And what's cool about it is we all have different talents. and different knowledge. And so it's like, this person, and he'll start to connect, and that network starts to get bigger and bigger. So he's very good at doing that. And he has no fear to talk to anybody. So it's kind of cool.
He's giving the L word web, but just without the relationship aspects.
I don't think I know what that means.
What?
I was like, yeah, enlighten us all.
I'm sorry, queers, that Justin doesn't know.
Wait.
The L word.
Oh, you're talking about the show?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I get it now. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was just like, what word?
Reel it in.
Okay, got it. Okay.
For those of you who do not know, though, there is a whole plot B from the L word where they start connecting in their friend group everyone who's slept with everyone, and it just literally just goes on forever. That's why I said it in the way that I said it.
Got it. So it's networking. Okay, got it. Okay, got it. It's
like a spider web.
A spider web of networking. Absolutely. Yeah. So I really want to kick off this conversation with the respective history of your time in the industry, right? Because the industry has gone through a multitude of changes. I know that people are just like, well, terms of service, are you going to still be talking about the pandemic? I was like, yes, because that has forever shifted the landscape of hospitality.
But also right now, as this episode is coming out, we will still be in one of the largest surges of COVID that we've experienced since the first year.
Right.
So please remember, if you can and if you're willing, mask up in public. Go get your booster, because there was a new one released this past fall. It's 2024. Just be responsible, okay?
Right, and also take care of yourself out there. But take care of yourself out there. And so I think a big element of this conversation to start is, there's a lot of residual effects for how the industry has been. And since we haven't been progressing in the manner that we should have, in some opinions, what are your thoughts on how the industry has been since you started to, let's just say, a few years ago? Art, to start with you.
Well, I've been in this business for a long time. And I know when I first started, I started with corporate. The Marriott Corporation, the Brinker International, and so forth. And so really, I was in the business of building restaurants. And I've also seen the other piece, which is the independent. So I've worked for the local company that is big here. And they are more in the restaurant business. So I used to always analyze the two. And one was when I was with the corporate, you're in the business of building restaurants for others because you have to satisfy shareholders. Whereas the other is you're in the business of restaurants. So you're focused really on the people, the hospitality, and the food, as well as the cocktails.
Yeah.
All right. And so, not to say that corporate doesn't focus on that, but they water it down, right? Because they have to please the masses.
Right.
Whereas would
you say because it's built to scale?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So at that point, they're booming across the entire country. And then at that point, they're just generating sales, which allows them to build more because they're on the stock market and they have, they're a growth company and they have to grow at a certain pace. Yeah. Independents don't have to do that. And so I know that when I switched over, it was like, okay, this is much cooler, right? There's not as much stress. There's always stress in the restaurant business, but you're not being held accountable to perform, to get this going, because we have to build more restaurants. Independents are like, you know what? I'm managing my checkbook just like you do at home.
Right.
And at that point, I can only grow when I have been successful enough to be able to grow the next one. And what that next one is, who knows? Chances are with an independent, it's not going to be identical.
Yeah.
So the corporate rubber stamps. Independents don't, right?
Yeah.
So they'll create a whole new category or a whole new cuisine or whatever it might be. So that has changed a lot in my view when it comes to things like that.
So what... Actually, let me hold off on that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, And I think that's very true specifically in Chicago because I moved here from the East Coast. And what I noticed after my first 2 or 3 years in Chicago is that people here have really boxed out fast food in a way that you don't see on the East Coast. There are not as many. People prefer to go to neighborhood places or even something even if though it's part of a larger group, it has its own identity.
Right.
And that's something I really appreciated and liked about moving to Chicago because it's easier to get into kitchens here because of that.
Right. It's interesting because I know that when I was with Brinker, Brinker's a big company throughout the U.S., and they were building, at that point, Chili's.
Oh, my God.
Southwestern egg rolls.
Love Chili's.
That was created here in Chicago by our group. We partnered with...
Really?
Wait, Chili's is from Chicago?
No.
Okay.
Chili's is from Texas.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
That Southwestern egg roll.
Oh,
right.
That makes sense.
So we did a lot of things here. Yeah. This was the test market to run a lot of different things, like the Big Mouth Burger, the egg rolls, and things of that sort. So that was based out of my region. And so as we used to do things...
I'm learning shit today.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
So as we used to do that, we used to work with Rich Melman on a regular basis. And so he had all these talented chefs, and so we would create things. And then here in Chicago, we would play with them, we would tweak them, we would cost them out and everything else, and we would test it here, and if it went well, we'd roll it across the entire U.S.
That's real.
Quick question in regards to that specifically. Why was Chicago such the test market for these national items? That was not even a question that I was going to ask, but it just popped into my head right now.
I have theories.
That's fascinating.
I think a couple of reasons. A couple of reasons. One is Rich at that point was the largest single shareholder because they had just sold Maggiano's and the Corner Bakeries to Brinker.
Dang.
Okay,
right. And Rich is a restaurateur. All right. And they needed help when it came to the culinary piece. That's one.
Okay.
And two, we're in an urban market. And a lot of those larger companies are never in an urban market. They're in suburbs.
Yep.
And so if you can attack the urban market and succeed in the urban market, they have a shot to go to downtown New York and downtown LA.
Because the demographic is a
I
lot
was
more
going to
diversified.
say, because Chicago is truly a big little city where it's not so large that because when you try to test things, specifically in New York City and LA and stuff, the clusters of people aren't diverse enough to get a proper testing. But in Chicago, it's so diverse in when everyone's in one situation, and it's not so large that you're skewing who's being able to access these things. You get more quality control kind of in your testing process. That was my theory.
And going back to your earlier point, people like to eat local, right? And so I'm sure when you travel, and if you were to go to wherever, pick a city, you're not going to sit there and say, well, I want to go out to dinner. Let's go find a Chili's, or let's go find a TG.
Funny thing about that, because you will find me at a Chili's in an airport.
110.
It's comfortable.
Yes,
It's
you know
safe.
it.
Yes,
It's safe.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So, but no, you will not catch me.
I will
Right.
say, though, I have been wanting to go to Chili's for a hot minute. And during the pandemic, I tried to go to the one in Evanston, and it was closed, and I thought it was closed forever. But someone posted about being there the other night, and I was like, it's on. I love a chain restaurant. And I know people are always like, but you were a fine dining chef. It doesn't matter. When you're getting off the train at 3 o'clock in the morning and 7-Eleven is the only thing that's open, a taquito in my mind is as close as I'm going to get to a Southwest egg roll.
I mean, it's
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the
okay?
morning. Yeah.
So I need to go. Actually, my sister-in-law, before we went to Puerto Rico for her birthday, won a package from Chili's for all of the donations that she's made over the year because my nephew loves Chili's. And so
did not know
she
any
won
of
a
this about
margarita gift kit, and her name is Margarita Beers. They thought it was a joke. Like 3 people were standing at the front to make sure that her ID said margarita beers for the margarita kit. Yeah.
There you go.
And then we almost went to a Chili's because it was right next to our hotel in Puerto Rico. Chili's has a very large part of my heart.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
I tell you what, it's a great restaurant. I started when they used to do everything from scratch.
I want to know what that's like.
It was like 100 stores when I started, and now there's like 1,200 stores.
Yeah.
But we used to make the chilies in 200-pound batches. It used to take hours to cook this chili. We'd smoke the ribs every day.
I don't think I've ever
French
had
fries
Chili's.
were always fresh.
Chili. I didn't even know Chili's made chili until right now.
I only get the Southwestern egg rolls.
Yeah.
So that's all I know. And the El Presidente margarita.
Yeah, there you go.
So I was just like, yes. So,
But the food it started out fantastic. I'm not saying it's not fantastic anymore. As you grow, you can't control the consistency from store to store to store.
Yes.
So you have to have other big manufacturers do it. And then at that point, what happens is the food, in my mind, gets bland.
Yes.
It's still good, but it
Wow.
gets bland.
Yeah. It's definitely different now, I feel like, than when I was going in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could only imagine. And also...
But I think it's the nostalgia that's winning still.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I had I'll never forget, I had like the coolest server at Chili's when I was like 9 years old, and I was like, Mom, like, who is this? She's like, I don't know, but I need another glass of wine. I was like, who cares? He's so funny. I was like, he's so funny. Let him sit here and like joke around. I was like, this is amazing.
Well,
yes, go ahead,
also people took it as a career back in the day. So you will find the top, best quality servers at, a Chili's, Hooters, any of these places. You had top-notch, staff and very well trained, and they took a lot of pride on what they were doing at that time.
I feel like I just talked to someone about this, though. I feel like there were a lot more programs that people had to go to learn how to serve in the 80s and 90s, which I didn't know was a thing. Like, and there's still like schools today that do that to a certain extent. My whole thing is that I feel like the methods and techniques that were used gave a sense of what is this word that I'm looking for without sounding cunty? Customers now have a sense of entitlement based on the way that servers were trained originally, and that has rolled down generations and generations. And now we're at a point where we're like, we would like to be treated like human beings in the hospitality industry. Like, if we're being hospitable, I feel like there should be a reciprocation to a certain extent. Like,
right, there needs to be an element of grace and empathy.
Yeah,
and also that kind of really folds itself into the whole idea, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm from here, so if I mess this up, then mad embarrassment on me. But Marshall Field's, the customer's always right. That idea, it's I can go on a whole like tangent about it, but
no one ever
feel
finishes the whole quote.
Oh, that's the only part of the quote I know.
Oh, I don't want to misquote it. Continue talking. I will pull it up.
And so, to Nariba's point, I think that it's really interesting to look at how Felipe has, as you just mentioned, that it was a career. It was something that you actually invested your time, energy, and it's something that you saw for the long haul, where now some people can treat it as it's a bit transient by comparison.
And also, back in the days, you didn't have as many options as you have right now. Technology, working remotely, like being, and people are trying to look for those things now more than being stuck in one place in four walls. That's usually, social media is sending a message, and there's a perception out there of what it is, but it's not, and people are just coming in with a certain expectations for their jobs, or when they're going in as a customer as well, and it's not meeting their expectations. There's so many places where they can now express themselves. Back in the days, there was really not much of that.
Right.
Yes.
So there's different avenues within the hospitality world to where you can actually become hospitality adjacent, you know, as opposed to just being the server, the line cook, the chef of X environment. You're still having influence and pull within that ecosystem as well.
I found it, but sorry, the person who told me that it ended in a specific way is a liar. The full quote is,
I was like,
rule number 1, the customer is always right. Rule number 2, if the customer is wrong, please refer to rule number 1.
Oh yeah, I've heard that part, but yeah.
Yeah. So someone was like, well, the full quote, it's misquoted all the time. It's like, the customer is always right, except for when the customer is wrong, then they're wrong. And I'm like, you just lied to me straight up to my face.
Yeah. I was like, because I would have remembered that. I was like, I swear it just defaults to the customer's always right.
I feel like there's a lot of things that I did that was outside of what I think the standard was for especially fine dining. But my whole thing is, if you go to a restaurant and they do this very specific food and you try to take something apart to make something that you can eat, instead of going to a place that can do that, then how is that make us accountable for the expectations that had nothing to do with what we are doing here? And so what my chefs taught me was, when you make certain things, when you make a dish, basically do it as a vegetarian option and then add your meat. And make components of it that can be vegan, so that if someone is like, I don't eat these things, we still have product to work with in-house already.
But also, that's a very new age of execution, right? Yeah.
Well, he was like that borderline, came up under a different generation of chefs, but also is trying to do things slightly different. I mean, I learned a lot of bad habits from him, but I think that the same energy with our parents saying they wanted to do it better for us, and then we're trying to do it better for our kids, I think that's the same energy that's happening in the food service industry now. I think people are trying to build more avenues for people to come up. I think people want you to be aware a little bit more that a lot of the skills that we learn in the food service industry is transferable outside of it. And we're also we come off as very valuable because we understand how to work very hard. And literally everything that we do outside of food service seems to be easier than what we were doing before. And I think that has a lot to do with people sort of coming and going. I feel like it's a very transient industry. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that now, specifically because of the pandemic. I think the reason, though, is job stability. That's why people are coming and going, especially with this new move of how pay is shifting.
Well, also what becomes really interesting in regards to that is the ecosystem was different back in the day.
Yes.
Right? Because there was this idea of you could not only support yourself, but you could potentially support a family. I don't even want to say potentially, because there are countless examples of people doing just that, right? And so whether they were working in the kitchen, they were working in the front of house, there seemed to be it's not validation. It seemed to just be like a worth, because the way that I see it now, people look at certain individuals within the industry as, what Noira was mentioning, it's just like a lower skill set, or like so on and so forth. When I feel like when I was younger, it's just like, there's nothing wrong with being a server, right? But maybe it's because I was younger at that point, and I was like, oh, okay. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because I definitely have a few other things that I wanted to mention, but I want to kick it back over to you both.
Well, for me, it was, I moved here from Colombia. I was born in Bogota, and I moved here in 2003. So for me, any job, my first job, I was just so thankful that I was starting to make some money. So, I started, in being a bar back in a restaurant, and I was just, washing the glassware and taking the bus bins to the back and making sure that bar was. So for me, it was just a blessing, and I was just so happy with my job. Of course, I wanted to move up the ladder and move to, now be a bartender and all that. But it's just different times, times how you see it. It's, it has evolved to a point where, okay, also, here's another thing. The other thing is that we did have bosses and we have chefs that they spoke to us in a certain way, 20-something years ago, and we were okay with that. We were just, we knew we made a mistake, we just turn around and just never make that mistake again, and it was okay, even if they threw a plate at us or anything
that was
like
the expectation and standard.
It was a standard. It's like today, those behaviors are not welcome whatsoever. No. And the other thing that I like to add is that I think that just for ownership to run a restaurant nowadays is way more stressful than when it was back in the days.
100%.
There was more flexibility for them to run it. Today, there's everyone is trying to take, dollars out of all this business in so many different ways. So, the culture is very important in a restaurant. So that culture comes from the top. If the top is very stressed because of all the moving parts, then it's going to trickle down. And, when you have an owner and someone that invested all this money and is trying to, be successful with their business and they can't, then, it's going to reflect on the staff and they're going to probably get a little bit of that stress. I do want to say that, for example, Art and his son, Tyler, they have their own company. One thing that I've noticed about them that even nowadays is that none of their staff leaves them. Even during the worst time, they stay with them. And I can tell you that is because of the harmony and how they handle internal problems. They just keep them in their office. And they treat their staff with such a love and respect, and the culture, it's unbelievable. It's like I work with every single operator and restaurant in the city, and I get to see it. There are also many others that do it very well, but I have a mirror next to me, and that's one thing that I've seen. Is no one leaves. They're some of his staff, they open Untitled with us, because that was one of the restaurants I opened with Art back in 2012, and they keep following him and Tyler.
I didn't realize that they opened in 2012. I staged, we talked about that a little bit. My first stage when I moved to Chicago was at Untitled, and they forgot that I was a stage. And at 8 hours into peeling artichokes, I had to be like, is someone gonna...
That was Chef Joe?
That was Joe. Joe had no idea she was there.
Damn. Yeah.
But no, it's just that's what I'm saying. The web is always overlapping with anyone that you sort of talk to in Chicago who is part of the industry in some context. But the ability to keep people working for you is something that I've seen very rarely in the industry. There are certain people who have stuck alongside their chefs or their GMs, no matter where they are, no matter what they're doing. And that's I think those are the people that you kind of want to sit down and talk to and see what they're doing. It's sort of like when you are working on a new recipe and you don't know what's going on. So you watch 3 different YouTube videos after you read 3 different recipes. And then you overlap everything and you're like, okay, this seems to be the commonality. I think it's like that. I think we need to start talking to these people who have a very good sense of keeping a staff, one, happy and fulfilled, and also seeing what they're doing and how we can replicate that. Instead of Chili's, can you do that for just hospitality for the restaurant, not for the customers?
The answer is yes. And here I want Art to share what he did during the pandemic with his team and his staff, because this is a really cool story.
Art, now the spotlight is back on you.
No
Yes,
pressure.
no pressure. Yes.
Well, when this thing started happening, I think we all knew something was going to happen. The government was going to do something, right? So we were anticipating it. So we thought, like everybody else, okay, they're probably going to shut us down and try to get everything situated. It's going to take 2-3 weeks.
Yes.
Right? We all thought that.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we had kind of an all-company meeting. At that point, we had 4 locations. And we basically sat there and said, hey, you know what? You guys have been hearing this in the news and everything else. Here's what we're going to do. All right, we're anticipating it happening, and we're going to end up closing. Don't know how long, but it'll probably be 2-3 weeks that we thought. So we said, okay, everyone's having the rush to go buy toilet paper and everything else because you couldn't buy anything, right?
Yeah.
And so what we did was we hooked up with our mainline supplier and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. So don't get freaked out about this stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit there and buy basic food and cleaning supplies and toilet paper and stuff like that. The stuff that everybody was rushing and there was nothing on the shelves. We're going to buy that for you. We're going to box it up, and every Wednesday you come. We supplied for 2 people, right? So you'd come in on Wednesday and we'd give you your box.
Yeah.
And then you'd come in every Wednesday. Right? And so we thought we were going to be doing that for 2-3 weeks. Well, 3 weeks turns into 10 weeks. 10 weeks turns into 15 weeks.
Right.
But we were like clockwork. And we continued to do it. And if there was jobs to do, even though we weren't open, we would have people come in and do stuff like that.
And rotate through.
So we let them know what was going to happen in our minds. Here's what we're going to do for you. And if there's anything you need, all you can do is ask us, right?
Yeah.
We're going to guide you the best way we know how, all right? A lot of times people are saying unemployment, I can get more here, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So we would guide you the best way we knew how. And at the same time, we said if there's any work, we'll call you so that we can continue to do things. So that's when everybody pivots, right? So we buy, I think we're probably one restaurants that we buy a lot of whiskey barrels from the distillers, and we do barrel share and bottle share and stuff like that. So all this whiskey stuff, because the state allowed us to sell it, right? We sat there and we created. My son created the bottle shop on our webpage, right? And so we were selling our whiskey because you can't get anywhere else because we own all the bottles and it was all foolproof, right? And so he created the bottle shop, and people were buying just like a liquor store, and they would pay with their credit card in advance, and they would come and pick up on Wednesdays because we were already there giving food to our staff, right? And so at that point, it started to generate its own sales, and so it kept everybody from Slightly Toasted working.
Yes.
So I'm so glad that you had mentioned where that is, because I just fired it up on my phone and it just connected to me. I love Tyler Mendoza. I know exactly who he is. And I was like, Slightly Toasted? Is this what we're talking about? Oh my God. Hi, Tyler. It's been a while since we've seen one another, but holy shit. Oh my God. Wow.
I'm his dad.
Yeah, I see that. I'm speechless. Okay, go on, please. I'm like, what?
And so the 3 of us work together.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
We'll talk about this more offline.
The
Oh my
L word
God.
web.
Yes, I was
Just
like, this is
keep dropping
amazing.
it.
Okay,
So
please continue.
So we did the bottle shop, which everybody for Slightly continued to thrive, right? At Little Toasted, which is 4 blocks away, you're in a building, and some people were still coming to the building. But what we did was we sat and we had, I think, 3 people, and we would open just for the building, and they maybe had 200, 300 people a day. It's not like we're making money. All I wanted to do is break even.
In the Chase building?
It's not the Chase building. It's right on 300 South Riverside. It's right across from the BMO.
Okay, yeah.
The Chase Bank was in the corner there. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Right, but it wasn't the Chase building.
Okay, because we did Tyler, we did a promo shoot for a chef that we were working with out of that kitchen, and on the riverside was like where we had set up for the video promo. It is all coming back to me right now. And I was like, holy shit. This was a while ago, though, because it was most certainly pre-pandemic. I'm just sitting here in awe, but I'm going to look at my notes in a moment. But this is amazing.
So we did that with Little, and then for both Asadito and Walkenbau, we basically third-partied it. And so we kept the kitchen crew, minimal staff, and we went third-party. And then we also hooked up with the World Central Kitchen with Jose Andres. Everybody was delivering to all the hospitals, the police stations, the fire stations, and everything else. And so they came to us, and we have a big kitchen on the second floor. And so we can push out 1,000 meals easily in a day. So they gave us parameters, and we sat there and said, we'd love to participate. It's helping people that don't have.
Yes.
And not a lot of people were delivering to the South Side.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. All the big restaurants, everybody else they wanted to be in the news,
in the city,
and they were doing the hospitals, and so they were getting all the publicity. And here we were doing probably 1,000 meals a day. All our meals went to the South Side.
Hell yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
amazing.
So we were delivering. There's probably 5 different locations, and the reason why we participated in that, we didn't make any money off of it, but we made enough to pay all the back of the house staff.
Hell yes.
Right? And it gave them something to do every day.
Yeah. And that's like a big thing, especially with people feeling like cabin fevery in their own apartments on a day-to-day basis, like having the ability.
And it's also we have seen this just from an industry perspective, the lack of discipline and routine during the shutdown, drug abuse most certainly was on the rise. Alcohol abuse was on the rise because time didn't exist.
Nope. Anything was anything.
Yeah, and for the idea of 2 weeks, just like, I'm chilling for 2 weeks. 3 weeks,
the first break
5
for a long
weeks,
time,
7 weeks, 12 weeks,
a year.
That's right.
It's just like the walls start getting, a lot tighter around you, and you're just trying to figure out what to do.
Yellow wallpaper.
Yeah.
Which is a short story about a woman who goes insane in a room with yellow wallpaper, and she becomes part of the wallpaper in the end. It's something you would read in high school / college. I'm so sorry. I'm a little geeky. But I was also going to say, like, this is also tying back to the roots of social work, which was always rooted in feeding people. And what people fail to understand is that the hospitality industry is the original form of social work. Like people bringing people together and giving them what they have and helping them like just eat some food and have a place to sit down for a while. And I think specifically in this time period, we get to see the like charitable side of hospitality a lot more. And it's 50-50. It's 50% of the time it's people trying to get out there and have people see what they're doing, and it's not always done with the best intentions. And then the other half of that is really coming from a place of we are in this together, and it's deep rooted. We have to like hold ourselves up in this service industry because we're in it together.
Right. I mean, it's literally the definition of camaraderie, which is already in prime example within a 4-walled ecosystem.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I always look at the restaurant business, and I tell all the staff when we start to interview and hire and so forth, what we do is easy when you think about it. We welcome people into our house, we feed them a great meal, and we thank them for coming. Easy is hard.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
You know what? It needs to be. It's something that it has to be natural. It has to be something that it really comes from the heart. That you are selfless and you really enjoy giving back and seeing that smile or that you're creating that experience for the guests. And it also applies to what was happening during those times where you did see the true selfless hospitality individuals of our industry come up and raise to the highest. And you were surprised that some of them were the little ones. There were some of the big ones. There was a little bit of everything. And I can tell you that I was extremely involved during that process and everything because of just my personality. Yeah. And you know what? Some others were just, you could see that they were just doing it because they felt that they had to because of the image part. Oh yeah. And there were others that they were truly just doing it and giving back. And it was just like really, those were really beautiful and fantastic moments that I have, you know, and that I experienced with many individuals here in the city, and a lot of people step up to help. I can tell you about, you know, one moment, which it was when I started working at Cisco, which is I moved now to be in the sales part, and I sell all the food to all the restaurants in the city. You know, one of my vice president of sales calls me and he says, Felipe, we have all of this food and we need to find a home. Otherwise, I'm going to have to throw this away. And I said, can you help me find a home? And I said, give me 1 second. Let me make some phone calls. So I called Chef Carlos Gaitan. I called some of the other, you know, chefs and friends. And I said, Carlos, can I use Zuko, his restaurant, to be a drop-off location? Yep. And within just one day, we put together this whole operation. And more chefs and communities start to say, I'm in. All of us were wearing a mask. We just don't know what's happening. And a whole full semi-truck shows up with fresh food. And then the line starts to, you know, go around the block. It went all around the block, and it just got back to Suco, to the other side of the block, where now there were two lines. We empty that semi-truck. My VP calls me again, and he says, can you take another truck? I'm like, yeah. Come on, let's go. Yep. And it was such an amazing moment. And like that one, there were many more. Yeah. You know, working with Art and, you know, World Central Kitchen. There was a lady with World Central Kitchen that calls me and said, I need to find people that could help me and have flexibility. Boom. You know, Art and some others that were just fantastic. And it was just one after the other, non-stop of really amazing moments that happened during those times.
It seems like the hospitality industry, only because that's the industry, right? It seems to me that they're usually the first ones to step up.
Oh yeah, 110.
And they're probably the one industry that really can't afford to step up.
That's the thing.
Part, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But I do down. Going back to like the staff and stuff like that. Our staff is our family. All right, you take care of family. Yeah. Now, sometimes you have, you know, drunken Uncle Joe, whatever it might be, right? You're always going to have somebody, but you hired them for a reason. There was good in that person that you hired, right? And so at that point, it's like, okay, all right, we're going to sit there and take care of everybody. And I think just in general, that's what the people in the hospitality business do.
So I have a quick question in regards to that specifically. So now, in this new age of hospitality, the idea of family at a place of employment is very different. So I'm really interested to hear both of your thoughts on how the idea of camaraderie and the commitment of community within the organization also has select boundaries and restrictions, because the idea of like everyone is a family, it has been used negatively in regards to, you know, the newer element of hospitality, the newer labor force.
It's seen more as a tool of sort of like manipulating people into doing more than they necessarily should be doing. And I think that there are some instances where you truly do feel like it is a family and you're being supported and like that. But in general, especially a lot of the places that I work, when I heard the word family, I think about the fact that I was sort of like, as soon as I got an opportunity to move up and I was going to leave that job, I became shunned. Everyone like started treating me differently. and the expectations change. It's like, I think a lot of it, especially in fine dining, did that. And so now, for me, it's always a flag goes up when I'm going into for an interview and I'm listening to them talk about how we're a family and a community. I'm like, okay, like, what does that mean to you? Because mental health is such a large component now, especially when it comes to the food service industry, that people are setting boundaries in places where boundaries don't exist for the hospitality industry, but is common practice in any other workplace.
So I'll go on this one because I do get to work with almost every single restaurant group, big, medium, small, and I get to see the culture and I get to see the environment. What I can tell you is that you cannot fake that, or you can fake it at the beginning, and then within a very short period of time, the staff will pick up and know that the whole family thing was BS.
Yes.
Right.
But also you can pick up on the ones that are really from the heart and being genuine and that do care for you. And it all starts from an interview process, a welcoming process, a training program, the dedication that they put back into it, how they communicate. Do they really take the time to mentor, their staff?
Yep.
And then that's what really builds and creates that family and that respect. And then, like, Art just said, it's when we hire them is because we saw something. And there might be one that is little
crazy.
Is it drunk Joe, that our uncle drunk Joe?
The uncle.
But we still find a way to work with Joe because we love Joe. And Joe is, he has so many great things that when he's on, he's the best, or one of the best, and the most hospitable and the fastest and this and that. So, for me, that's what I see. It's that people are not dumb. They do pick up on which one is real
absolutely.
and which one is not.
Yeah, for sure.
And I always look at what do they want to do long term, right? It's like you sit there on an interview. And believe me, I've worked for corporate and everything else, and there's all these structured questions and everything else. And I was the kind of guy that sit there and say, "What do you like to do? What's your hobbies?"
Yeah.
And because sometimes you can't get people to talk,
No.
right? And so you're just saying, okay, they might say, well, fishing. So what is it about fishing? And so I'll ask questions about fishing. I'm not a fisherman. I know how to fish, right? But
I don't, so you got a leg up on me.
So they'll be talking about something, and as they talk, you see how excited they get.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about something that just sparked that individual, right? Now, it has nothing to do with the interview, but it shows me the passion they have when it comes to fishing. All right. Now, at that point, you start to ask different questions, and if that passion starts to come out in how they're talking to you, right, regardless of their experience and everything else, right? If I can get that passion, and they're willing to help me, let them,
right.
Then you know what? I can grab them all day long, right? And so long as I'm kind of cultivating that on a regular basis, then they're just happy. They're happy because, number one, someone is listening to them. Some of them's kind of guiding them. And in that instance, when people do leave, for me, you can probably ask anybody that's ever worked for me. They'd sit there and say, yeah, when I told him, he was asking me questions as, is this, because I get to know everybody, and I know what their likes and their dislikes are, and they'll sit there and say, yeah, I want to be a multi-unit manager. But you know what? You're really good at training. So, yeah, you could be a multi-unit manager, but you're not very good. You're good at doing it yourself, but you're not good at directing others to do it.
And that's
delegation.
Right.
Yes.
So you're going to have a hard time, and it's going to take you a long time, and you may fail because you've never done that before. Right. But you're training people like crazy, so you're teaching them. You should be going in that direction. You'd succeed in that, right? And I don't think there's a lot of people who will sit there and say, you know what? Yeah, you could do that, but you'd be much better at this.
Exactly.
Right?
So there's a bit of mentorship and guidance there as well. So, I mean, for navigation, I mean, because a lot of people are just like, well, this is what I'm going to do, but then, not feeling empowered enough to actually have those real conversations, like what it's going to take to actually fulfill a role such as X, Y, and Z.
I mean, that was like sort of the sit-down discussion with one of my old chefs, because he knew that I wanted to be a sous chef. And he was like, Reba, I would make you a sous chef tomorrow, except you don't know how to ask for help. And that is a thing that you're gonna have to be able to do when you are a sous chef, because you cannot do it all on your own. And I when he said that, at first I was full of rage. But then I was like, okay, this is something that I have to work on. And over the next 6 months, he saw me being better at communicating with others. Also being the only black woman and queer in a kitchen with all white dudes is hard. But he saw me making the effort to do the thing. And then I was able to become a sous chef in the next year. But I think a good leader is not afraid to give you feedback that will help you grow. I think a bad leader is someone who's afraid that you will grow and take his position.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's interesting when I always used to look at chefs, all right? If I needed to hire a chef for a restaurant, I would reach out to sous chefs, right? Because when you think about any restaurant in this entire city, all right, I can tell you the chefs that I know that are the ones that do it, and they do it every day, and they're in the trenches with their staff.
Yep.
And I can tell you that most of them aren't like that.
Yeah.
Right? They rely on the sous chef.
100.
And that sous chef is the one that actually executes and on a consistent basis the food in that restaurant every day.
Yeah.
And so I would much rather have an interview of sous chef and say, I can pay you this, because a chef's going to ask for a huge amount of money. I can pay a sous chef and say, okay, here's your track
introduction.
now.
Yeah.
You're going to start off at this, and I usually paid them more than they wanted, but I gave them the opportunity to make
grow.
more.
Yeah, there's a trajectory there.
And it's now I'm a chef. Now, because you think about any restaurant, if you wanted to be a sous chef, your ultimate goal was to be a chef.
I mean, yeah. So I had a 10-year plan to become a chef. It happened in 8 years, and I felt like I wasn't necessarily ready. But I think that's also because I have hella imposter syndrome, 1, and 2, I want to make sure that I know every aspect of a kitchen before I'm in charge of someone. And I think that when I became an executive chef, I felt so overwhelmed because it was the first time I was in charge of everything. And I did it really well, but I thought that I was messing up all the time. And I was actually going to transition back to a sous chef position so I could learn more from someone else and make sure that the next time this happens, I'm ready for it. Then COVID happened. And I was like, I'm never going back to a kitchen ever again.
You're like, this is my escape.
Yeah. Well, it was an accident because after the first 65 days of doing nothing, I felt like a rabid animal. I was just setting up my kitchen every day like I was at work, and I'd play Brad Leone in the fucking background, just talking shit in kitchens. And I'm making soup, freezing quarts of soup, and just walking around my neighborhood and dropping it off for my friends because I'm this is all I know how to do. And then I realized I was I feel like working in kitchens specifically for fine dining was like being in a fraternity. I didn't realize I was being hazed the entire time until I sat still for 65 days.
Yeah.
But I do love the food service industry. It has a chokehold on me. I'm clearly bartending now. And
But what's interesting, and you mentioned it earlier when you asked about, how people feel about, being a server or a cook or whatever. When you take a look at everybody that's working in the hospitality business, I can't tell you how many people that I've worked with in the past, they have degrees for something else.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They're teachers
Human
that
development
aren't
and
making
family
enough money,
studies.
and so they're making more money in the restaurant industry, right? And so it's supplemental. And so, when people think it's the service industry, well, you know what? The service industry keeps everything afloat.
Oh, 110. Yes.
And, so I always look at that and say, well, when someone kind of talks down about service, I always sit there and say, you don't understand. These people make... When I was in the 70s. I was going to college for architecture. I wanted to be an architect.
What school?
Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So that's what I wanted to do, all right? Because I thought this was fun. I was doing it through high school, but I was always in the restaurant business, and I was always making good money back in the 70s, all right? And so then I talked to my professor, and I started asking him questions, and he was a somewhat successful architect. And then you don't want to ask, but you ask, well, what do you make per year?
Yeah.
Right? And what was interesting at the time is I was working for the Marriott Corporation in the theme park division. The theme park division was Great America.
Yeah.
The first Great America was built in Santa Clara, California. The second one was here in Gurnee.
We're learning so much today.
My first job that I applied to was Six Flags Great America. They never called me, but I'm fine now. So, yeah, thank you so much. Shout out to them. So, yes, go on.
And so I was a salaried person at Great America. And so when he told me what he was making per year, I'm like, hell, I'm only 19 years old, and I'm making as much as you right now.
What? See? See, that is the problem there.
so-
It made me mad.
And so then at that point, I'm like, well, geez, maybe I should really move in this direction because I'm succeeding at this. Not to say I wasn't succeeding at architecture, but if you're going to be an architect, you got to get your degree, you got to go through, you got to get licensed, and then you got to sit there and build your business. It takes a while.
My sister went to school for architecture at Wentworth University and then became a plumber. She's a journeyman union plumber making hella money.
Oh, yeah.
They make great money, yeah.
Yeah. And now she's running all of the stuff for New Jersey Board of Education, Cook County in New Jersey.
Yeah.
She does all of the plumbing for the schools there. She
So no.
Who knew?
One of my closest friends, he's a plumber. He makes great money.
Yeah.
And also for me, when I moved here back from Colombia in 2003, I moved here through political asylum, and I'm just discovering this country. And as an asylum seeker, they give you the option to go to school and go to college. Then I start asking questions. It was like, how much people are making those different careers, and I'm already working in a restaurant. And within some time, I did get a job in South Beach, in Nikki Beach, which is this place where in one night, you'll make $1,000.
exactly.
And you ask anybody who makes $1,000 in a day or just the entire year how much I was making. No, like people with careers, people like with
That's
really
the thing.
great jobs.
Yeah.
And that's where I said, you know what? Hospitality is definitely for me, not only because of the money, because I really enjoy it.
I mean, your whole personality is set up for hospitality.
And then from there, it's like I wanted to learn more, and then I decided to move to New York and just start my career in New York, which is one of those hubs for hospitality, restaurants, and everything that's going on there. But we make
When I started bartending way back when, we're not going to talk about the year. I mean,
the audacity of you saying that
it was way back
is
when.
wild.
For me, it was way back when for me.
That's good to say.
It's all good. So, and this was in Columbus, Ohio, at a terrible Mexican restaurant. It was created by a white couple in Minnesota. I don't know, nor do I care what they are doing now, because I was just like, this is the most inauthentic bullshit that I've ever been a part of, but I needed a job, so I was just like, okay, I'm going to be out here serving 32 different flavor margaritas with a
You
chips and
should have
salsa
been
bar.
working at Chili's.
It was not within walking distance from my apartment.
Fair enough.
Outside of the campus of the Ohio State University. And what's so interesting about that is when I started bartending, again, I was living in Columbus, Ohio. I was like, did I just figure out the key to fucking adulting here? Because the amount of money that I was walking away with, and that place was
Mid.
fine at maximum. Every shift that I worked, I'm always on the back line talking to my friends that made me what they would be eating for comida, because I was like, I don't.
Yeah.
They're like, no, get back. And I was like, I want some spice. They're like, oh, can you handle it? I was like, yes, I can handle this. I was like, I'm Jamaican. Give me this shit. Okay. And it was It was such a great introduction for me, not only monetarily, but to also see the people that really made it run and really made it work. Not the people that were looking at it from a bird's eye view, making sure that they're making X amount of money from it. It's like these people actually have talent that they can't actually showcase throughout this concept. They just have to push out whatever sort of, menu items you would like. But it was such a great... It was such a great learning example for me. But also, I do want to shift this a little bit because one thing that I definitely want to talk about is bad behavior in the industry and generational influence on that. Because a lot of chefs would be like, this isn't a direct quote, but it's like, I'm an asshole because who I was working underneath was also an asshole. And it's like, this is the way that it is. This is the brigade system. If you don't like this, then get the hell out of my kitchen or like get the hell out of my restaurant. So I think that a lot of listeners are going to be really interested to hear like how that has been and if there has been any experiences with that and what you commit to kind of help mitigate that if you do experience it within your organizations or people that you work with.
It's you're right. It's changed considerably. Felipe talked about throwing plates and stuff like that, and it used to be like that.
Yeah. I've only seen it happen once, and it wasn't a plate; it was a spoon, and we all like saw it happen. It was like a glitch in the matrix. We were like, "Did that just happen?" Yeah. And then none of us spoke about it because of the fear.
Right.
But
nowadays it's a litigious world now. Everyone wants to sue, right? And growing up in this business, working for corporate and everything else, you go through all this training and so forth. And first it was the worst, the hostile work environment, then it was sexual harassment. You have all these things that are happening around you. So if you're running the business or own the business, you have to look at all these things on a regular basis, right? And then what happens today with everything else going on is you have to sit there and communicate to everybody saying, you know what you thought was just a joke, you can't say because you don't know who's around.
Yes.
Right? And you might offend somebody. All right. So you can sit there and say, I know what we do is we'll sit there and let them know that here's what's acceptable and here's what's not acceptable. If you have something to say, all right, and you're going to joke with your buddy, then you need to go somewhere else because it doesn't happen here.
Yes.
All right. Because we don't want to offend anybody, whether it be a guest, a coworker, or anybody. It's difficult because you can't be everywhere all the time.
Right.
But I think if you set those standards and that expectation, and you're going to get people that are just, I'm not going to follow your rule. And those are the people you sit there and you reel in and say, hey, we talked about it once. Right. We're going to document it.
Right.
All right. And Felipe will tell you that I've let go a lot of people in my lifetime. And most people aren't surprised I let them go. They knew it was coming because I've had conversations prior to. And I always tell them, here's the consequence.
Yes.
There's always a consequence.
Yeah. So you presented them with the road to redemption, if you will, to be like, hey, that you can fix this.
Yes.
But then if you decide not to,
these are the consequences for your actions.
Yeah.
I experienced with Art for the first time in my career, a staff member giving him a hug and saying thank you the moment he let him go right in front of me. It was something that I've never seen before. Because no, truly,
Yeah.
I was like, how did he pull this together?
Yeah.
Because of how he did it and the steps that went behind that, and he was actually guiding this person in life. Because he was at the wrong place. He was not at a place where he was happy. And Art was able to read this because of how involved and how much interaction he has with the staff. You just need, as he said, as a family, you just need to connect with them and you need to get to know them. Know a little bit about their family, their personal life, how they live, like what motivates them and all of these things. And it was I remember this. It was Roca Court 2011 in the back alley. Remember that? It was it was one of my managers that I was a GM. He hired this manager, and this is a super high end, like very demanding restaurant. And he just couldn't. It was just not for him. And many things were he was just not motivated. He was not happy. He was not in a happy place.
It wasn't for him.
It was not for him. It was not for him. But the way that he did it, it was like, what? How? I'm like, this is amazing. Yeah.
But sometimes you got to cut bait, right? Because it's going to hurt you.
Yep.
Is that a fishing reference?
Well, it is.
Yeah. I was like, see, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
I tell that to my managers all the time. It's like some of the staff will take advantage. And it's like, okay, you know what? Here's how you need to better handle this, right? You're letting them poke you, right? You should be poking them. Well, they're just going to argue with me and everything. Who's in charge? You're in charge. Right? So if you want them to do things you want them to do, you need to set the expectation. And if they poke you, then it's like, hey, you got one of two decisions. All right? You're either going to correct what's happening or do me a favor, punch out. I don't need you. I'll get somebody else that wants to do this. Because there's plenty of people that want to do this.
But not in a way that's like you are completely 110% replaceable. It's more in you can do this. You're choosing not to do this. Yes. I will say that during the pandemic, after I had left my executive chef position, I had a couple of line cooks reach out to me and say it was the first time that I worked for a chef who actually listened to me. And one of the first things I said was, if you are mentally unwell and you cannot come into work, do not take advantage of this, but let me know and take a day to yourself. Because there were so many times where I felt like I was coming to work fully sick, like 100-degree, because they make you feel like you can't not be there. But I would have some days where I was so emotionally, mentally, and physically burnt out that I just couldn't leave my apartment because I'm working damn near 80 hours a week, somehow only working 5 days. And it's like, I did not want to do what I felt like chefs had done to me with my staff. I also gave them the opportunity to develop their own dish ideas, which was something that they didn't really have a lot of experience with. And the way that I looked at it, it was I want to train you. I hired people that wanted my job. I wanted to train people who can take my job because that's how I felt like my chef taught me. Did he say and do a lot of unfortunate things all the time? Yes, he did. But I tried to take the good from what I saw in that situation and correct the bad habits that I know that I got from him moving forward. And I had a lot of my line cooks reach out to me and be like, thank you so much. It was so good working for you. And I think it's because I treated them like family without ever calling us a family. And I think that helped them feel like it was a safe space because I wasn't yelling at them. I did the mom thing where I'm like, I'm disappointed in your actions, which is manipulative a little bit. But it's how I think a lot of people that work in kitchens need structure and they have either mommy or daddy issues, because I do. But I think you catch more bees with honey than vinegar. And that is something that has not always been the tact in the food service industry, back of house and front of house. I will say the first time I got a front of house paycheck, I was livid because I made more money in my first week working front of house than my paycheck when I was an executive chef. And that made me angry.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And that happens, I think, in our industry as a whole.
Yeah.
And the expectation, I think, is that you're going to work a ton of hours too. And that goes back to the quality of life. I think your sous chefs are the people that you were training. As they were getting better and better, it made your life easier and easier.
I didn't really have a sous chef the entire time I was executive chefing because they all came in with an idea of what they thought it would be like. But I ended up being basically the executive chef and the sous chef the entire time. I was working 105 hours a week.
That's crazy.
I was burnt out. And the owners wouldn't close down for like one day and or service, like for just like taking out brunch, even though we weren't making money. So I was working 2 clopens between Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was the worst time of my life.
Wild.
You know what? And it all starts like when you're creating the restaurant and you're putting together your financials. The person who really taught me financials was Art. You're putting together those performers. You have to think about a place that it's not going to be operating 24/7. Those environments are not healthy.
Yeah.
I think restaurants that close on specific days or have like 2 days that they're completely closed and everyone, the staff, they get to rest. They perform at a higher level.
Yes.
They're more profitable. You don't have staff leaving because they have quality of life. And it starts right there. It starts right there. The ownership that thinks that because they're opening 24/7, they're going to make more money.
No.
They're completely wrong. And that is going to probably fail.
Yep.
Yeah.
And nowadays with COVID, I mean, it's a different world. It's the week really is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Friday is not what it used to be. Now, if you're in River North,
shit not.
if you're in River North or you're in certain areas, then the weekend with the tourists and so forth, you'll do fine. All right. But a lot of the suburb places and so forth, you're going to sit there unless they've really got a following, and there's a lot of places that do. They're probably struggling. All right. So I know that all our restaurants are in the Loop. And there's nothing happening in the Loop. I mean, it's slowly coming back. I think we're maybe at 55% now.
I think next year, like New Year's, will be the first year that might be a real feeling like New Year's again in the city. Yes,
I
damn
hope.
right.
Sorry.
Marcus, sorry.
I know. That's how I feel because people are starting to like go back outside again.
And I've worked every weekend most of my life. And then when we started this new company, because we're in the Loop, right? And I used to run all the corner bakeries in the city.
Man, I would love a throwback corner bakery moment because that used to hit. But yeah, go on.
But being in the urban environment, you learn a lot of different things. You learn how far people walk, right? Because they only have a certain length of time because they're in a skyscraper, and so they got to get an elevator. So we used to do pin dot studies and everything else. So it's really interesting when you look at the whole engineering of what people do in the urban market. So when we opened our first restaurants, because we're in the Loop, it's like, you know what? There's really no reason for us to be open on the weekend, right? So every one of our restaurants is only Monday through Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We open for coffee at some of the restaurants. So some of those are like slightly when we opened up, we were open from 7 until 2.
Okay.
So it's a long, right?
Yeah.
But some of the other restaurants were only open from 11 o'clock until 8:30. But we always figured that, you know what? Yes, we can make more money if we open on the weekend. But then if I open on the weekend as an owner, now I have to hire another set of managers. All right. The shifts are longer. Right. Now I have to worry about a lot of overtime. Right. So I have to look at those things. And is it worth it? All right. Is it worth it to open those 2 extra days for a little bit of money?
Yep.
I always sit there and say, you know what? If I ever get to that point where I think I need it, then maybe I'll try it. Because I do think that a few of the restaurants, we would kill it for breakfast and lunch. But you know what? Everyone's 5 days a week. They got a good quality of life. It's okay.
I think right now what my job is doing, because it's so slow, is we're rotating a cut per week for one person. So you don't get the whole, like just one day. There's usually 4 bartenders, and we're rotating on Tuesdays who takes the cut. So everyone gets like an extra Tuesday off or an extra Thursday off so that people have the opportunity to make more money. And that doesn't always work for everyone, but for us it does, because when we're busy, we're like balls to the wall busy. And I think that we are surviving in the bubble of Rogers Park because of that reason, because there is like the neighborhood who gathered round. I don't even drink gin, but during the pandemic, once every 2 weeks, I would buy their gin and tonica kits to go because I'm like, I want this place to stay open. And now I'm working there. They got me. Dang. But like, I think it's like making those decisions that don't always necessarily profit for the business keeps your employees happy.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were like, if I do this on the weekend, I have to hire more staff to do it. Wild. Some people would never.
But that's the thing about someone that truly understand every aspect of the actual business of the restaurant, the financials, the impact. Many people do not understand that part, and that's where they make the mistakes.
Absolutely.
I've worked with a lot of people, and I've always said it. Art is one of the most knowledgeable guys in our industry, period. It's like he understands it so well because he has worked in so many different types of companies that he gets those things. And that's what some of the reasons that it makes it successful. And they have that culture.
Yep.
And by the way, Tyler was just texting me.
What's up, Tyler?
He was, yeah. Well, he was calling his dad, and I saw the phone, and I'm like, "What's up?" Like, I have Art here. He's in a podcast. He's like, "What?
What? Yeah.
What are you guys doing?"
Did you tell him it was Justin?
Oh my gosh. We haven't seen each other in a minute, but I'll message him and be like, yo, I was with your dad earlier. Hello. So we are coming up on time. And so I just have a final question, kind of tie this all together. I'd like to hear from you both of any sort of advice for people that are getting into the industry based off of your experience and how they can have a sustainable and fulfilling career in hospitality if they so choose.
I would say don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people. I can't tell you how many people that I help. Somebody has come to me, say they're going to build a restaurant, whatever it might be. They'll ask me questions, and I'll give them the information. And I'm one of those guys that I'm gonna help you as much as you want me to help you, probably too much, and not ask for a penny, right? And there are people that I've done that for, and they go on and open a great restaurant and everything else. But I think a lot of times people they don't know if they can actually ask that chef, how did you get to this? What are the pluses? What are the minuses? And things of that sort. People are just afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
And that's, to me, that's the easiest thing that you can do. Right. What's the worst that they're going to say? I don't have time right now, right? Well, then you don't have time right now. That's fine. But can I schedule something on your schedule so that I can sit down and maybe have a half hour? Because I've got a series of questions. Most people won't do that, but if it's something that they're really interested in, they can learn from just different people, whether it be a server, from a cook, a dishwasher. I learned so much from the dishwashers.
Dishwashers, listen, that's a whole thing that we talk about all the time. They're the ones.
They are. They know exactly what's selling in that restaurant. Right? So I would say reach out and don't be afraid to talk to people.
Oh my God.
And I would say, that's a big part, but how do we gain their trust? It's by building a community, it's by having a lot of allies within our industry, is by that word of mouth is said, just call Felipe. Trust me, just call Felipe. He will give you the answers. He will connect you with everyone. And I come from the same school of art, and art being, someone that I've learned from so much. I want to help them. I want them to be successful. I want them to have a restaurant that is structured properly so it is successful, so they can have the right culture, so they can have the right environment, so they can have a proper marketing strategy to launch and hopefully start making money right at the beginning. But yes, they have to ask the questions, and that goes for whoever is building the restaurant. And also, let's say that someone wants to start working in a restaurant and this is their first job.
Like, where do I suggest that they go? Ask your friends. Ask, okay, which one is your favorite restaurant? Which one is the third place? And there's a book that always Art mentioned about that third place. That is normally is a restaurant or a little coffee shop where they treat you like it's home. Just go there.
Yeah.
Because most likely that's going to be the place where they're going to treat you with love, respect, because that's what they're putting out there to the world. So it's about that. It's asking questions and making sure that you talk to people. Don't go just out there and apply for a job online, because probably you're going to land in the wrong place. You're going to have a bad experience on your first job in hospitality, and you're going to hate it for the rest of your life. So hospitality could be amazing. It truly changed my life. I give back to hospitality as much as possible nowadays, because it really has been very rewarding. Of course, a lot of like hiccups and a lot of bad experiences as well, but a lot of amazing ones, like him right here next to me, like someone that is family for me. But that would be my advice.
Yeah, I look at it and say, I'm sorry.
No,
Go for it.
What I love about this business, and I've been doing it most of my life, and everybody has asked me, when are you going to retire? We're going to retire. I don't think I can ever retire.
People in this industry don't retire like that.
What I love about what I do is I meet new people every hour of every day.
True.
And that is cool.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up.
I was like,
I will say, on the dishwasher front, one of my favorite dishwashers I've ever worked with, his name is Vlad, and I started making a porcini pasta dish on the menu with like a caviar sauce, very, very fancy. The owners wanted something that was like, meh. And he used to have just the pasta, not all the fixins all the time, but almost every day as his shift meal. And when I took it off the menu, he did not eat any staff meals for like 6 weeks. I ran into him randomly on Father's Day last year, and he is now making pasta at Gemma Foods.
That's great.
Can I add one more thing about dishwashers? Yes. Love them. And another thing, if anyone needs a dishwasher in this city, they call me.
Yes.
Because I have access to unlimited amount of staff and people within the city. And you can ask John Mannion, you can ask Oliver at Obelix, you can ask them at Le Bouchon, you can ask many of the chefs, and I do take the time to speak with these dishwashers to understand them.
Right.
And they're referred by other dishwashers and other people that I know. So it's already, I kind of already did that first interview for them.
Yeah,
and they're really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say also, before we leave, you could also put it out there for people who are listening who need people to come work for them with what you're doing with the people who are being shipped here. Or do you want to talk about that or
Yeah,
no?
I can definitely do that. It's something that is very close to me because I came here through political asylum, and I love to give back. And, a lot of the people are not, this is not the ideal environment and how things are being handled. But we can do something about it. And what we can do here is create kind of like some type of sustainable environment where we allow them all they want to come to this country. They want to make some money, make a living, be able to rent a little room to be with their family, not be inside a shelter that was built for 1,500 people and has 3,000 people. And they're just, everyone is getting sick and all of this thing. They're hungry. They're good people. There's a lot of everything. And I can tell you that within 100 people outside of this building right now, there are 3 or 4 or bad ones, 5 bad ones, and it happens in any society. The ones that I talk to, it comes referred by other people. They're sweet, they're nice, they have their family, they have dreams. And so far, everyone that I've been able to find a job for, because I do a follow-up too. I called the chef and I said, hey John or Oliver, how are they doing? And they're like, oh my God, they're amazing, they're so sweet, they're hard workers. And then some of them are already moving to do prep. Yeah. We know that you start as a dishwasher, and from there,
and you can
if
build
you're
up.
hungry, you start chopping onions, and then they're going to give you something else to do, and then eventually you become a line cook, and then eventually, you become this, a sous chef, or you're taking orders, or you just become that person. We know that it's doable. So yes, I'm very involved. It's not going to stop. There's a coat drive that I started, and it was a beautiful campaign, and I'm going to start it again. So that's something that I'm putting out there to the world. It's going to start again because it's cold, because they're sending more people here every single day. They don't even know where they're landing. They're dropping them off in the suburbs. These poor people it's not okay. So us as the hospitality industry, as a community that we are, we come together and we find ways to help and give back. So that's coming. I'm never going to stop doing this.
Yeah. And just how can people reach out to you?
They can reach out. Best thing and easy for everyone. We're all connected through Instagram. Felipe Ospina or at El Señor Hospitality. That's great. Or even my website, felipeospina.com. I'm there. Or, through this podcast, they can ask, how could I get a hold of Felipe? And
we can connect you. We can connect you.
Yeah. And yes, we need to help them. We need to, because I've seen a lot of successful. I am producing a documentary about this. This is something that I've never done this in my life, but as you know, I just jump in and start doing projects. Yeah. Yes, I'm putting together a documentary. I'm one of the producers with another friend of mine. That she was the one who helped me put together the whole campaign for the winter drive that we did back in October 27. And it's going to be about putting out a message and the success stories and the positives of all of this thing that is happening, because what we see in the media is mostly a lot of negatives, and it is reality too, but I also want to share positive things. And there might be a few other things that we're going to expose about the things that are not being handled correctly, because that also needs to be shown. But it's mostly about success stories of people that came here with absolutely nothing, and now they're in a better spot because of our community and us giving them a hand.
Hospitality, baby. Inside and out.
Showcasing hospitality. So, before I do the things that we know to do, how was your time with us, my friends?
This was a pleasure.
Yay.
Thank you.
Too often when you go and you talk with folks and so forth, what I get tired of is they're always talking to big companies. And there's so many of us little guys.
Yes.
Right. And I look at, even though I have a lot of knowledge and stuff like that, I like to be kind of behind the scenes, and I like to push other people up. But for me, this was a lot of fun because it's a lot of great questions. And I think it'll show people that, this is what hospitality should be. And it's not a corporate or a big whatever.
Yeah. Damn right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love this. This is just like, I can keep going here for more hours.
Listen,
I guess.
that is why we have these things to help us stay on track, because we'll talk forever.
No. I can keep going. And same thing. I really like the structure and the format of this, because there are a lot of amazing stories within our industry that is not the celebrity chef, that is not, the massive restaurant groups. There are so many. And I'm glad that you're doing that. Please, put them out there to the world so they can share their stories. So people see that there's more to it.
Yes, 110.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much.
I'm out here like, yeah. It's us.
Thank you from the both of us.
Yes.
So naturally, in closing, just have to give a supreme thank you to our partners at Blind Barber Chicago for hosting these necessary conversations. Also, thank you so very much to Athletic Brewing for supporting the delicious IPA that we have been enjoying, the Run Wild, which is non-alcoholic. And
you can hear us popping the cans.
Very tasty. It's very good. It's really good. I'm impressed
for
that
your
this
dry January.
Yes. I'm in dry January, and it really tastes like an IPA.
Yeah, I was like, they nail it.
Yeah.
And so I just really want to thank you both again, because this is so important, because we at Terms of Service have not really dove in deep in regards to kind of that generational impact of the industry, and that has been a big part of what people have been really interested in learning about, because they're like, how can we combat bad behavior with our new thought process. And I think you both really painted like a beautiful roadmap of what it has been versus how it can be and what it will look like moving forward.
Yep.
So on that note, I am Just Nonat Graham, and you can find me on Instagram at This Is Biko.
And my name is Nariba Shepherd. You can find me at Rebaru, Rebaru on the gram, and we will chat at you soon.
Later. Bye. All right. Good.